If you've ever heard the words Skyline and Godzilla in the same sentence, you already know where this is going. But what if I told you there's a version of this car so rare, so fast, and so technically advanced, that most of the world never even got to drive it? Stick around, because in this story, we're going to uncover not just how the R34 Skyline humiliated European performance legends in the 90s, but how it became a myth. A car so iconic, people still talk about it like a ghost. And trust me, it's not just about fast and furious. And if you stick around to the end, we'll reveal just how rare this beast is today, and how much you'd need to spend to even dream of owning one. Let's rewind a bit. Because to understand the R34, you've got to understand its bloodline. And more importantly, the minds that shaped it. In 1989, Nissan dropped the R32 Skyline GT-R, a car so ahead of its time that people called it a cheat code. It packed a twin-turbo inline-six, all-wheel drive, four-wheel steering, and a computer-controlled chassis system that made it drive like it could read your mind. It won 29 out of 29 races in Group A, dominated Australia. Europe took notice. The mastermind behind this revolution? Naganori Ito. He was the chief engineer of the R32, and he set the blueprint for what the GT-R would stand for: technology, dominance, and precision. Then came the R33. Heavier, slightly softer, but still deadly. It kept the same RB26 DETT engine and added refinements to the Atessa all-wheel drive system. It was a bridge between raw power and refinement, and it set the stage for what was coming next. 1999. Enter the R34. And with it, Kozo Watanabe, the man tasked with making it legendary. Watanabe didn't want to just build a faster GT-R. He wanted to engineer a weapon. He shortened the wheelbase from the R33 to make it more agile, stiffened the chassis to improve response, and brought back that razor-sharp handling the R32 was known for. And just before we go further, let me ask you this: what happens when engineers are obsessed, not just with winning, but with rewriting the rules of the game? We're not done yet. Under the hood, still the RB26 DETT inline-six twin-turbo engine, a masterpiece. But this time it was paired with a GetRag 6-speed transmission, a beefier differential, and smarter systems. Everything from cooling to weight balance was obsessively refined. Inside, Watanabe and his team added something unheard of at the time: a multifunction display that showed real-time telemetry, boost levels, oil temp, even G-forces. It was like having a racing dashboard in a street car. That display was partly inspired by conversations with engineers from Nissan's motorsport division and by insights from Gran Turismo's creator, Kazunori Yamauchi. Inside, Watanabe and his team added something unheard of at the time: a multifunction display that showed real-time telemetry, boost levels, oil temp, even G-forces. It was like having a racing dashboard in a street car. That display was partly inspired by conversations with engineers from Nissan's motorsport division and by insights from Gran Turismo's creator, Kazunori Yamauchi, who had become fascinated by how to make virtual cars feel like the real thing. And here's where things get wild. The R34's Atessa ETS Pro system didn't just split power between the front and rear wheels. It constantly calculated grip and adjusted torque in real time, based on your throttle, your steering, even G-forces. The result? A car that felt like it had a brain. Pause for a second. We're talking late 90s, no smartphones, no cloud computing, but this thing had real-time torque vectoring. Let that sink in. Another figure behind the scenes, Hiroshi Tamura. He wasn't the lead engineer, but he was deeply involved in product planning and later became known as Mr. GT-R. His role was to protect the GT-R's soul, ensuring that despite all the tech, it still had that raw, driver-first essence. But maybe the craziest part of all this? Japan kept it to themselves. Nissan didn't export the R34 GT-R to the United States. You couldn't buy one new in Europe either. It was a forbidden fruit. And that made people want it even more. So how did we find out about it? 2 words: video games. Gran Turismo on PlayStation brought the R34 into millions of living rooms. Kids who couldn't even drive yet memorized the name Nissan Skyline GT-R V-Spec 2, and dreamed of hearing that turbo whistle in real life. Kazunori Yamauchi, the creator of Gran Turismo, played a massive role in making the R34 an international icon. His obsession with realism introduced an entire generation to the magic of the GT-R. And then, Fast and Furious happened. In Too Fast, Too Furious, Paul Walker, a real car guy in real life, handpicked the R34 GT-R for his role. That silver-blue monster wasn't CGI. It was real. And it sparked an obsession in the West. But Paul Walker didn't just drive the R34 on screen. He bought one for himself. He imported it through Motorex before the car was legal. He raced it. Tuned it. Lived it. He even lobbied to make import laws in the U.S. more lenient, all because of this car. Quick question, how many cars do you know that made people change the law just to drive them legally? That's the kind of grip the R34 had on people's hearts. Now, hold up. We're about to get into the real details of what made the R34 so untouchable on the street. But before we do, imagine this, you're in Tokyo. It's 2 in the morning. The streets are wet. Neon signs flicker. You hear that high-pitched whistle, the turbos spooling. And then, that deep, aggressive bark from the exhaust. That's not a dream. That's the R34. Let's keep going. The R34 came in multiple trims, base GT-R, V-Spec, V-Spec 2, M-Spec, and later the N-R editions. The V-Spec 2 N-R is especially rare, only 718 units were made. It came with a gold engine head, upgraded turbos, better brakes, and a reinforced block designed to handle insane power figures. Then there were the midnight purple editions, paint so reactive it changed color under different light. Aesthetically stunning, but they also became collector gold. Less than 300 cars in each midnight purple run were ever made. But let's talk about the GTT, often misunderstood, but important. The R34 Skyline GTT looked similar to the GT-R. It had the same body lines, aggressive stance, and road presence. But under the hood, it had a single-turbo RB25-NEO engine. Rear-wheel drive, not all-wheel drive. And instead of the wide body, it had a narrower track. It came in both 2-door and 4-door variants, making it more accessible and practical, and also a favorite for drift builds. A lot of people think the GTT was a baby GT-R. In reality, it was a platform with its own fans, cheaper, lighter, and easier to mod. You'll see tons of GTTs turned into GT-R lookalikes, some purely visual, others built to destroy tracks. Now, let's circle back. Compared to its European rivals, the BMW M3 E46, Porsche 911 Turbo, even the Audi RS4, the R34 wasn't just competing, it was embarrassing them. Its grip, its tuning potential, and its power-to-weight ratio made it a scalpel in a world of sledgehammers. And then, there's the Z-Tune. If the R34 GT-R was a samurai, the Z-Tune was a war god. Built by Nismo, only 19 Z-Tunes exist. Nismo hand-picked used R34 GT-R V-Spec models with under 30,000 kilometers, tore them down to the shell, seam-welded the chassis, and rebuilt them with a 2.8-liter stroked RB engine pushing over 500 horsepower. The suspension was bespoke. The body had carbon fiber panels. The brakes were upgraded. And the paint? Z-Tune Silver. Untouchable. Each Z-Tune cost over $120,000 at launch. Today, if you can even find one, expect to pay over $500,000. Some say the Z-Tune is the greatest JDM car ever made. Period. But here's the twist, some versions, like the Midnight Purple V-Spec 2 N-R, have crossed 7 figures at auction, over $1 million for a Japanese car from the late 90s. And that's not a fluke. As time goes on, these cars just get rarer, more valuable, and more legendary. So how many original R34 GT-RS are even left? That's a tough one. Between wrecks, mods, illegal imports, and conversions, it's estimated that fewer than 10,000 truly unmodified units remain globally. And when it comes to ultra-rare variants like the Z-Tune or N-R editions, we're talking less than a few dozen in collectible condition worldwide. And just to put things in perspective, here are a few that could make your bank account cry: a Z-Tune, One recently went under the hammer for over $1.5 million. That's right, a factory-born monster with track pedigree and collector-grade finish. The V-Spec 2NR in Midnight Purple 3. Try 1.1 million. Rarity, color, and heritage all wrapped into one paint-shifting missile. A GT-R M-Spec NR with low mileage. Just shy of $650,000. It doesn't scream like the Z-Tune, but collectors fight over these for a reason. Even the so-called entry versions, like a clean V-Spec 2, now start above $250,000 and climb fast depending on history, mileage, and mods. We're not talking hype anymore. This is modern-day treasure hunting. GT-RS are no longer just cars, they're currency. So here's the real question. Will we ever see another car like this again? Something with this level of mystery, raw performance, cultural weight, and a soundtrack that could wake the dead. The R34 Skyline GT-R is more than a car. It's a moment, a myth, a mechanical love letter from Japan to the world. It wasn't mass-produced. It wasn't easy to get. It was fast, complex, and ahead of its time. And that's why people worship it. Because it was forbidden. Because it performed. Because it had soul. And maybe, because cars like this don't get made anymore. If you've ever downshifted in a tunnel and smiled at the turbo spool, you get it. And if you don't, stick around. Because this garage never closes. Subscribe, join the crew, and we'll see you in the next story.